Hi comic book fans, and welcome to another suddenlycomics.com video. And today I'm going to be talking to you about one of my biggest collections that I've got, which is of Cerebus the Aardvark, all of which were collected when I was active collecting comics in the mid to late 80s. So for those of you who are unaware, Cerebus the Aardvark was a self-published comic by a Canadian comic artist and writer called Dave Sim, and it started in December 1977, I think, and it ran for 300 issues, finishing in 2004, and at the time it was the longest running independent comic. Of course, since then Spawn has overtaken Cerebus to become the longest running independent comic. So unfortunately, I didn't start collecting Cerebus until probably the early 80s, when it had probably been going for about 4 or 5 years. So I do not possess issue 1 or issue 2, and even when I started collecting these in the sort of 84, 85, Cerebus #1 was a very expensive comic, because obviously it was a low print run, to the extent that there was even a forged version that was made of it. So I've just looked on eBay. There was a raw copy of Cerebus #1, I think selling for about £5,000, and there was a graded 6.0 selling for about 7,000. So that is still an expensive comic. Right, my first issue that I have is issue 3. I just got it out of the attic, and so when Cerebus started, it was basically a parody of Conan the Barbarian, a bit like Gru, which first came out in 1981, about 4 years later. But this, and you can see here on this issue of Cerebus, we've got a character called Red Sophia, which is obviously a parody of Red Sonja. I just got this out of my attic, and I went to check the prices of this, and this one in graded condition for a 6.0 was selling at about $800. So I think mine's in pretty good condition. I think mine's better than that. I think mine could be 7.5, 8. So I think I might get mine graded. It's only these very early issues of Cerebus that are worth anything, really, because obviously the first issues were low print runs. The later issues really not worth very much at all. So as I said, the first sort of 20 or so issues of Cerebus were sort of a parody of sword and sorcery type stuff, the Conan type stuff. But then in issue 20, began to change, and here I have issue 20. It's called Mind Games, and Cerebus's nose has got shorter. He's got quite a long nose in issues 1, 2, and 3. It gets shorter, and he's more of the established Cerebus we get to know. And here, Dave Sim, the author, really changes the direction here and starts writing more serious issues, which goes on really until issue 300, and he covers a whole load. He covers religion, he covers gender politics, all sorts of stuff. It does still carry on doing some parodies. We'll come to that in a minute. I'm just picking some of the covers that I like. So that was issue 20. Here is issue 43. I just like the cover. I think this was maybe a run called High Society, I can't remember. but a nice cover here. And I've also got issue 50, which is a landscape one. With issue 60, before we get to issue 65, right, he did get into trouble for his use of his parodies, and it happened with this comic here, and there was 3 issues of this with a this character is called Wolveroach, which is obviously a take of Wolverine. And he was used in 3 consecutive covers. And Dave Sim actually got a letter from Marvel's lawyers telling him that he needed to desist. And apparently in Canadian law, if you use a character twice, it's parody. If you use them 3 times, it's plagiarism. So Sim, after this, when he's doing a take on some other character, doesn't use them more than twice. So it's parody rather than plagiarism. Right, just another cover I quite like. A lot of the female characters on here. Now, Dave Sim, so here we've got another, obviously we've got The Thing here, parody of The Thing. This is issue 80, and by this stage Sim has brought on board a fellow artist called Gerhard, who does a lot of the cover artwork and a lot of the he takes a bit of the load off Sim, and they worked together for many years, although eventually Sim did buy out Gerhard's part of his publishing company, Aardvark Vanheim. Okay, so Cerebus was extremely popular, and print numbers had increased. I think this one was the one with the highest print run. This is Cerberus 100, and I think there were 36,000 of these produced. This was, I think, the peak of Cerebus's circulation. After this, it started to go downhill, because pretty hard to get new buyers, new readers in when you've got 100 issues back issue, and Dave Sim didn't help by saying that you needed to read it from the start. Right, so then we have issue 100, probably the height of the popularity of Cerebus. I've just put this cover in because I like it. This is, and Sim did occasionally do work with other independent writers. And here we have this flame, this carrot, the flaming carrot appears in here, and a really nice cover. What issue is that? That's issue 104. Right. What happens with Cerebus is he starts running storylines. I think there's one called Jacka's Story, which is pretty poignant, and is seen by some as the peak of the Cerebus run in terms of the writing and the artwork. And then we run into a series later on called Mothers and Daughters. I've got a couple of covers here which Mothers and Daughters ran for a long time, and in itself had 4 story arcs, and it really got Sim into quite a lot of trouble. He'd got a particular view about women, which is being described as misogynistic, which he describes as anti-feminism. And as you can imagine, given today's gender politics, this has almost meant that he's been ostracized from the comic world, and his back work is really been played down in my point of view. So he's also developed his own religion, Uh, so, which is a sort of combination, I think, of 4 or 5 different religions. So, an interesting and complex personality who started out doing a spoof on Conan the Barbarian and ends up writing a fairly large treatise on gender politics. I have to say, when we got to this, I'd been collecting. I of the 300 issues, I've probably got 230, 240 of them. I really sort of started dropping out when we got into this sort of stuff, because I read comics for fun, and that's not much fun. If I want to go and read psychology or religious treatises, I'm not going to do it in my weekly comic collection. So here we go. Here's issue 250. Ooh, no, issue 200. More Mothers and Daughters. Okay. Right. So I think I've got up to issue about 240, 245, and then I stopped. So I've got a lot of I've got 3 boxes of Cerebus up in my attic. I do love some of the covers. I did like the early Cerebus. As I said, through to probably the end of Jacka's story, I was reading it. Probably after that, I was buying it because I'm a completionist and I've got a lot of them and I wanted to carry on. I do have a couple of other fun ones. This is a fun one. This is Cerberus number 0. A lot of you can pick these. I think you can pick this up for a £5, and it's quite nice because it's got it's got a guy with a spawn surfboard, and this guy's saying, "Gosh, Cerebus, will this comic be worth a lot of money someday?" Well, it isn't. And Cerebus is saying, "Not after I bend this corner, you greedy capitalistic weenie." Dave Sim, whatever you think of him, never shied from biting the hand that fed him. Right, and finally, and I have absolutely no recollection of this comic. I've just got it out of the attic. It's called, it's a nice comic. It's called Cerebus Jam, number 1. It dates from 1985. And the reason I'm showing it to you is it's actually signed by Dave Sim and Gerhard to me. Now, I cannot for the life of me recall meeting Dave Sim and Gerhard and getting them to sign this comic. Well, I'm getting old and addled, and but I just can't remember it. But there we go. I have got a signed copy of Cerebus Jam from 1985. The comic itself is worth a £5. I suspect because it's signed by Sim and Gerhard, this might be worth a bit. But I'm not selling it. It was to me. It says to Mark, best wishes. So I shall be hanging on to that. Right. So Dave Sim is still going. He still does produce some Cerebus stuff. He's reverted really to parody stuff. There's a lot of, I'll put a few pictures up here of some recent stuff he's done. I have actually ordered a couple. He's done a spoof of Swamp Thing called Vark Thing. He did a spoof of Spider-Man 300. Again, I'll put a picture up here. And he's got, I think it's called Cerebus in Hell, and he does parodies of a number of the Marvel and DC Comics book. In fact, I've pre-ordered one that's coming out in January that puts together 4 of the parodies in a single comic. So Aardvark Vanaheim is still going. Dave Sim is still active. but his eminent position in the comics community has sort of plummeted due to his gender politics views. Okay, I hope you have found this of interest. Enough said.